Hello everyone, it's Shel C from StencilGirl Studio. Today I'm sharing with you my summer art journal page for StencilGirl Products design team. I am using 3 different stencils today, and they were designed by Traci Bautista for StencilGirl Products, and they're all very loose and free and fun and great for art journaling in the summer. So one of the first things that I like to do when I get some new stencils and I want to try them out and see what they're like is to use them on a gel plate. A gel plate makes monoprints, and there are lots of different versions of this out there. Here on the screen I have my 8x10 and my 6x6. I like to use the 6x6 for the smaller size stencils and also to use it as a palette. So what I'm doing here is trying out the tropical floral stencil using some different colors of paints that remind me of summer. Not super bright, kind of on the pastel side, but still pretty bright. And I've placed the stencil over the plate, and then I'm using a small brayer, the 2-inch brayer, to go over the different areas of the stencil and fill it in with different colors of paint, which I'm picking up from my 6x6 plate. And then I blot some of that excess paint off with a regular sheet of paper, and then I'm going back over it with different coordinating colors and a sponge so that I get a real multicolored effect on all the different areas of the stencil. And this is a fun way to see what the stencil will have when you pull the print. So once that is a little bit dry on the plate, and this is easy for me because I live in Arizona. You might have to wait a while if you live somewhere humid. But I use some unbleached titanium paint over the entire thing in a very thin layer, and then I'm using some rice paper to pick it up. So that thin layer of titanium paint adheres to the paint that's already on the plate and allows everything to pull up as one big layer. And that's a real fun way to make collage paper and also to play with your brand new stencils. So this stencil I'm using now is the deconstructed chrysanthemum from Traci Bautista and StencilGirl Products. It's actually a mask and a stencil, so it has a lot of uses, but I'm just trying it out on the plate. I put some orange paint over the stencil portion on my 6x6 plate, and then some blue paint on my larger plate. I like to play with 2 plates at a time because that gives you a palette. It gives you a place to put excess paint so you don't waste anything, and it also gives you options of making more than one print at a time while you're waiting for something to dry. So then I put some lighter color paint over the dried paint on the plate, pick it up with some light paint, and I get a multicolored print that way. This is my favorite way of printing and making collage papers with my new stencils. So here we have a light image on a bright, and then a light image on a dark. And I don't know which pieces I'm going to use for my page. I'm just playing around, making some interesting prints and seeing what I get. And then you'll see it towards for the second half or the later half of the video what I do with some of these prints. I don't use them all up. And if you would like to watch the entire gel printing session, there is a version of it over on my channel, Shel C, StencilGirl Studio. So now I've got the journaling words stencil from Traci Bautista StencilGirl Products, and I'm making a few different prints with it because I know I want to use some of those words on my art journal page. I just am not sure exactly what I'm going to get with my prints. I make some different prints, and still working with that deconstructed chrysanthemum at the same time while I'm playing around with these different gel printing ideas. and colors of paint. So this one, I've put some dark color down onto the plate, and then I put the stencil over it. Remember when you're using a word stencil that you need to do it on the reverse? So you flip it over so that it looks backwards to you, and then when the print comes up, the words will be in the right direction. Believe me, I've made that mistake before. More than once. And then I get backwards words. I'm like, what are you going to do with these? And they just become, abstract pieces in my collage later, because it doesn't really matter in an abstract setting whether they're frontwards or backwards. So then once that's, I've removed the stencil and I've let it dry a little bit, I pick it up with some yellow paint, and I get a blue writing on kind of a yellowy and turquoisey background, similar to that chrysanthemum print as well. So I've made way more prints that I need, and I think, well, I still need a few more with this tropical floral stencil from Traci Bautista StencilGirl Products. And so I decided to make more of a generalized print by adding some bright colors over the stencils on the plate again. And I'm just putting, rather than like trying to really pick out different parts of the stencil and color it like I did in the first print, I'm just making it more generalized. And I let that dry, and then I use some darker colors, or more like coordinating colors, to go over the top and pick up this print, and it becomes an interesting, kind of very tropical looking print, which I end up using in my art journal page. So here's my page. I've got a spiral bound journal, and here's all the different prints that I have made and trimmed down just to look at them. That one with just random, pickup colors is probably one of my favorites. I don't use it, but it was pretty cool. There's the very first print I made. That's going to be the main portion of my background. And then I'm tearing some other sections. I've taped off the edges with some masking tape on my page, just so that I don't get the edges dirty and I get a nice white frame around my page. And I'm just tearing different sections of different prints to make my background more dynamic. If I just put one print on there, yeah, it's a colorful print, but it just doesn't speak to me as much as filling out different sections with different prints. And that's the reason that I make multiple prints, so that I have a lot of options for days on end of ways that I can use these stencil prints. It's just so fun. And I have leftovers that I can make into cards or more pages or altered tags or covered boxes or concertina books. I mean, I have tons of prints left. So this is a really fun process to make some colorful prints and then to use them in a collage setting, which is my favorite thing to do. So I've torn up different pieces. I've placed them around on my page to see what they'll look like. And then I'm going to attach them with some gel formula matte medium. That's my favorite for collage. The paper in the background is 140-pound watercolor paper. So it's a heavy enough paper to accept this process of gluing and, sticking everything down. I have to keep repositioning everything to see if I've got it in the right place. And of course, this large print, the main portion it's made out of rice paper, and I have to kind of stick parts of it down, stick things under it, and then continue to attach it. I have a spray bottle for papers that are thicker to kind of break down the fibers in the paper and make it easier to stick. And then for the real thin paper, that's unnecessary. And then I have an old gift card to kind of make sure that everything is smooth, and kind of smooth everything down to the paper so that I get a really smooth background. There was one section of my background that I thought was just too white, and so I tore that same little kind of partial flower with a center from a different, more bright piece and just put it over the top. And now I'm pretty happy with my entire background. I'm starting to work on my focal image pieces. The first thing I do is to take the mask portion of the deconstructed chrysanthemum mask in stencil, and I'm going to stencil that onto my page using some bright pink and some kind of coral colored paint. The bright pink wasn't bright enough. I had to keep going over it a couple times. And I'm using a makeup brush to do that. It's kind of a toothbrush style makeup brush that I purchased a set of these, and they work pretty well for stenciling in very small areas. So it's a fun way to stencil. And then I give that a good dry, and then I put the stencil portion over the top, trying to line it up. I don't have any marks on there that help me line it up, so I have to keep turning it and turning it to figure out where it goes exactly. But there are some identifiable quirks on some of the edges that you can figure out. So then I start stenciling this with lighter colors over the top of that bright pink background. And I end up using titanium, unbleached titanium, and then some Naples yellow in the center. And I end up darkening up that center portion with a little bit more of that pink, trying to make it more of an orangey color. So that's pretty cool. I like that. That's going to be, you know, interesting on my background. Still not sure what I'm doing. I decide that all the different torn and collaged pieces need a little bit of integration. And an easy way to do that is to use your stencil. And you know, when you have a big stencil like this, there's so many different options there of pieces and parts that you can use. Any stencil, you can just use a little section of it. You don't need to use the whole thing. And so I'm picking out some of the smaller areas of the stencil and using those same colors that I have on my palette, the Naples yellow and the pink and the coral color, to kind of just add here and there, fill in areas that I think need a little bit more something something, and just integrate all those different pieces that I glued onto the background. Especially up at the top and the bottom, there's pretty large pieces of a different color than the rest of it, and I need to get those like filled in and fit in better to my composition. So then I switched to some different colors. I started out with a light blue. It was too light, so I ended up switching to a darker blue to add a little bit of that color in, because it is in some of the prints, and there's just not enough of it, and it's enough of a contrast to all the other colors that it makes things stand out. So I add quite a bit of it here and there, sometimes going over a section of something that is already stenciled and going over the top of it, like that flower up at the top. And then sometimes just adding pattern and interest in different areas with that blue color. So once I'm happy with that, I start thinking about what else I'm going to put over the top. I'm going to cut some things out. I decided to use this word play. So I cut that out. I left some of the background on there because it was kind of a teal green color, which coordinated really well, but then I cut a lot of the sections out of it. And then I decided to also use this particular chrysanthemum. I cut that one out, and I even cut the center of it out. And then I have an orange one, and I cut just a section of the image, the center petal looking section of it out, and layer that over the top. And I'm thinking that's pretty good. I glue all that down with the same gel formula matte medium and a wide brush. I keep repositioning things. I keep moving things around until I'm happy with the way they look. That takes a little time to do that, but I do that just, moving it around just to see how things will look in different positions and getting it just right, just right. Then I give it a dry to make sure that everything is really, really dry with that matte medium, because I am going to do some pen work. The first thing I do is use some fine tip Posca pens, white, and I'm just adding sketchy highlight marks over my images. I think that this makes your image stand out from the background, and it also adds your own handwork, your own little something that comes from you over the stencil. And it makes it more about your art and less about a stenciled image. Stencils are a great start, but you can also alter them slightly with your own hand just to make it more about you and what you think it should look like. So I put white all over the word and the chrysanthemums, and then I decide I need another word. Now there's no summer word on that stencil because it's about journaling words. It's not about that. But I want something to say summer so that you know this is a summer art journal page. And so I try to write in the same kind of style, sort of duplicating Traci's writing as much as I can. Not very well, but still. And I do that on a piece of white paper because I just want to be able to glue it over the background instead of writing it right on the background. I'm always a little bit shaky about my ability to write directly onto the page because I tend to write things going up or going down. They're not straight, and also to sometimes misspell things because I'm not thinking real hard about the spelling. I'm thinking about art. So I go over the word that I've written in pencil with some coordinating color of pens. Again, the acrylic pens, and glue that on. And I'm pretty happy with that. I go ahead and start adding in a little bit of black to make it stand out more. I'm not completely tracing anything, but I'm just giving it a few sketchy lines in areas to just make it stand out better. I wasn't planning on putting black on this page. I don't think that black goes with summer very well, but the illustrator in me came out and I had to do a little bit of black line work. You know how it is. Sometimes you can't fight your nature. So then I decide to make an exclamation point because summer play passionately. And then I now think that the rest of the focal images need these same black sketchy lines to go with my words. So I go ahead and put that in. And then the final thing I do, and this is something that I often do in collage when I feel like I need to make something that's glued to the top look less like a sticker and more like part of the art. I like to add shadows. So I'm using a water-soluble graphite pencil. It's like a gray color, and a water brush. And I just draw in areas with that gray graphite, and then I blend that out with the water brush. And I think it softens the lines. It makes glued on things look more like they were intentionally put there and they were part of the art, part of the composition. And sometimes I use a color to do this instead of a neutral like a gray or black. And other times I use even as much as a real deep black to do this. And by blending it out with the water brush, it makes it look more soft and I don't know, I like it. I just like the way it looks. So I hope you've enjoyed this video about my summer art journal page for StencilGirl Products design team. And if you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up. You can leave a comment below if you would like to. Subscribe to this channel, and you can turn on your notification bells. And of course, you can always pin this or share it on Facebook if you're really in love with it, so that you can find it later or you can share it with your friends. So be sure to stay tuned for the close-ups of the page at the end. And that is it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.